Labas. It's my first time speaking in my home country, Lithuania. I've spoken in many countries abroad, so it's quite special. And thank you so much for joining me for this special milestone in my career. So, welcome to my talk How Minimalism Helps Build High Quality Products. And I would add teams as well. My name is Lina Zubyte. I like to call myself quality aficionado because I've done various roles in the quality field. You can find me as Bagilina on Twitter or with my name on LinkedIn or Mastodon or whatever platform you use. I also have a website, qualitybits.tech, where you can find some writings and a podcast with the same name of Quality Bits. So let's start with this topic. Minimalism and high quality products. Why would I even think of that? Well, I was at a conference. I was at a conference like this, like you are now. I was just sitting down and listening to a talk. And I always try to learn something new when I am listening to a talk, right? I try to see, okay, what can I learn here? But in this talk, there was a speaker that kept on saying, this tool, that tool, these tools, this framework, that framework. And I sat there and I tried to listen. And I was like, wait, why are we talking about this? I almost fell asleep. I was like, this is boring. What are we trying to solve here? Because in the end, tools are not going to magically solve all of your problems. It is people who are going to do that. So I sat there and I wondered, okay, we're talking about tools all the time, but it actually is people who solve the problems, not the tools. And this is where the first idea and parallel with minimalism popped into my head. Because I was thinking, okay, there's the minimalists, and they have this quote: love people, use things, because the opposite never works. I thought of this quote and I thought of the work I'm doing, and I was thinking, yeah, love people, use tools, because the opposite never works as well. And thinking about tools, I remembered how once I worked in a company that had 100 employees and we had 120 tools. So each employee joining the company likely brought in a new tool. And here you may wonder, so many tools, everything must be sorted out and in order, right? With no problems because everything is automated. But actually, there were plenty of problems. These tools sometimes even gave us new problems because you would try to find an answer to a question. You go to one tool, but it's not a full answer. So you need to go to 3 other tools and combine all this information until you find the actual information you need. So these tools were cumbersome, expensive, and very overwhelming and unclear. Again, I have to remind you of Agile Manifesto here. So you may be wondering, okay, Lina, this woo-woo thing, we already saw parts of it. Why are we talking about Agile? I want to remind you of one thing. This manifesto was created by rebels in software development. It was created to have better practices of development. It was not saying Jira, it was not saying Scrum, it was not listing the list of tools that we have to do, which a lot of sometimes agile coaches that join tell us to use. What Agile Manifesto was saying was, we are uncovering better ways of developing software by doing it and helping others do it. Through this work, we have come to value individuals and interactions over processes and tools, working software over comprehensive documentation, customer collaboration over contract negotiation, responding to change over following a plan. That is, while there is value in the items on the right, we value the items on the left more. So if we look at this, documentation is great, but if your software doesn't work, what's the point of that? And it's great to have some kind of plan, right? But if the change happens, which it does, it constantly does, we have to be able to respond to change here. And there's one point that especially pops out here for me. individuals and interactions over processes and tools. And I understand that the left part here, it's hard. It's hard to talk to each other. It's hard to collaborate. It's much harder than to say, let's get this new tool and it will solve it for us. Or we will do it this way and then it will be magic. And there's one principle that you've already heard about, simplicity. So together with this manifesto, there are also agile principles that are combined with this that you can find, which is simplicity, the art of maximizing the amount of work not done is essential. Here some words again strike parallel to me with minimalism, which is simple, simplicity, essential. When you read this, you may wonder, okay, the art of maximizing the amount of work not done, what are we talking about here? Well, we're talking about here basically about less is more. Choose what you're working on and get it done. Don't have a backlog of millions of items that you don't even know what's there and it's overwhelming and it's clutter. So all this sounds wonderful and now you're like, okay, great, but how do we actually do that? Before we start, we have to look at some definitions. So what is minimalism? If we look at the definition of minimalism, this is what I found. It's intentionally promoting the things we most value and removing everything that distracts us from it. It is marked by clarity, purpose, and intentionality. If we're looking at this definition as a QA, I'm like, okay, things we most value, that's a good conversation. What is success to us? Removing everything that distracts us from it, that's a bottleneck, right? Removing the bottlenecks that we're working with. And then we basically have clarity, purpose, and intentionality that marks our work. So I'm already thinking, wow, this is really related. And it could be a professional illness that I see my work everywhere. When we think of minimalism, you may think of this person. Who recognizes this lady? Perfect. So this is Marie Kondo, and Marie Kondo is known in pop culture as a person who popularized decluttering. She has a Netflix show called Tidying Up with Marie Kondo, where she tells you if you pick up an item and it sparks joy, you keep it. If it doesn't, you say thank you. It was great to be with you, but now I'm getting rid of you. And some love her, some hate her, but she does have quite good thoughts. One of those is like this. When we really delve into the reasons for why we can't let something go, there are only two: an attachment to the past or a fear for the future. When I read this, I'm again thinking of our tech world. If we get some kind of tool or have some kind of way of working, why would we not change it? Well, there's only two reasons. Either we are attached to the past, there could be some cognitive biases and errors that we tend to make, like sunk cost fallacy. We invested so much into it that we cannot let it go. Maybe we invested money, maybe we invested effort in it, so we cannot let go of this tool and there was so much work at it. Or a fear for the future. For example, competitors. Competitors will do it, so we have to release all those features because otherwise someone else will do it. So when I look at some concepts of minimalism and I think about the work I do, I tend to believe that minimalism, simplicity, intentional work are the base of teams building high quality products and teams actually. So again, looking at this definition, is it minimalism? Or maybe we could even say high quality products. Because high quality products and teams that deliver those products, it's all about intentionally promoting the things we most value and removing everything that distracts us from it. It's marked by clarity, purpose, and intentionality. Now I have to give you a disclaimer on silver bullets because I will give some tips, but minimalism as well as quality mindset, it's a mindset and it's a continuous habit forming. So there's no one trick here. I'm not going to give you a silver bullet and a magical kind of idea that will revolutionize everything, but I hope to really spark your imagination and give some suggestions and tips that could be useful in your unique setup and context. And if you want to talk about details and would like me to brainstorm what we could do, we can talk after the talk about your situation. But let me share what I've seen. So we're going to look at some areas and talk more about the how. So how do we live these minimalistic principles in our daily lives? First of all, ways of work. When you ask someone how they work, they say, Jira. I'm like, this is not how you work. That's the tool that you're using, actually. And if you Google Jira, what do you find? You find articles like this: a guide to Jira workflow best practices. And then there's this complicated graph, right? It makes me angry seeing this. First of all, best practice. I had a nice conversation with Steve, who's talking tomorrow, about the fact how he despises the term best practice because there's no such thing. There's a good practice in a certain context. What works for me may not work for you at all. And here, this article is suggesting us the silver bullet, right? This is the solution. And looking at this as well, we will look at the workflow power and the best practices we will cover. And then this is graph. And if I was a junior a QA or anyone in the team, I would be, first of all, feeling stupid because I don't know these best practices. And I would be overwhelmed. So this is why this article for me, it's even concerning and dangerous, because right now I know that, okay, I see this like a little bit of it like a pinch of salt. But is there even a best practice for here? So we tend sometimes to overcomplicate things and sell them in this way, right? That it's like best practice and will solve everything. And once I worked in a company where we use Jira, and we would keep getting blocked. We had huge clutter in whatever the system work we were doing. And an agile coach decided, hey, we can solve this by adding a flag in Jira. So when you're blocked, you just mark it with a flag and then it becomes red. And we did that, but I was like, it's not going to solve the problem, right? It's just going to make it more visible. And one of the QAs said, yeah, well, you can tag it with every flag in the world and it still would not help. I was like, yeah, it doesn't matter if you're flagging it if you're not doing anything about it. So what should we do here, right? So, well, maybe talk to each other, right? That would be an easy solution. But I would like to try to recommend you to ask all the time, whatever way you're working, ask yourself, what is the purpose? Are you intentional and clear with whatever you are doing? It's, in the end, individuals and interactions over processes and tools, right? Tools here again, right? So Jira is a tool. It's not some kind of panacea that will solve everything to you. Even if you mark it and make it very visible and it's all red, and you still need to talk to teams. You still need to collaborate with each other to solve those problems. An example of interactions is actually the tweet that I saw by John Cutler, who is a product person. He's a very vocal voice there. It's a little dialogue. I'll read it for you. Wait, you all don't use user stories? No. What for? To have stories. How do you break stuff down? The team meets, talks about it, maybe sketches, and then we build it. Without stories? We might take notes or diagrams and make them stories? No, no stories. This is the person that we would traditionally think is a product manager or someone who writes user stories, right, for a living. So if we look at this example, it's really sometimes hard for us to grasp it. And even though I love user stories and I love beautifully written acceptance criteria, but is it for every team that we need it? Likely not. If they can work out what they're working on, sure, go ahead. Maybe it's enough for you just to sketch something out, implement it, and not have those beautifully written user stories. Another example I want to give you is that you could work just with a physical board. You don't even need a Jira. This is an actual team I worked in. I think it was one of the highest performing teams I ever was a part of. In this team, we had retrospectives, we always change the ways we are working. And here you see a physical board behind them. It had these notes like written by hand, and you can see they also are sort of different because the board changed and we decided we need maybe a new column. Maybe we're shuffling something around. We had an inbox, so if someone thinks, okay, like I found this issue and I would like to discuss it, we would just add a post-it there, and we would have an actual stand-up. We would stand around this physical board. There would be avatars next to the stories showing who is working on what, and we would talk from right to left and discuss how we can move forward. And here it was done mostly in the physical setup, but you can see there is also a laptop there, and as far as I remember, there was someone joining in remotely, and we were still sketching and discussing as a team. This team proved to me that we didn't have Jira at that time, and we were still delivering and collaborating with each other. Even though Jira did help eventually when we had it, but we would forget to update it because we would just use our physical board. Another area that I would like to talk about is engineering simplicity and avoiding over-engineering. We're QAs, right? We want to be proud of what we're delivering. But if we ask ourselves, what is the value of whatever product we're building? Does it matter that it's 1 pixel off? Is the bug you're reporting really that important? Let's ask each other these questions. And as Reid Hoffman has said, if you are not embarrassed by the first version of your product, you have launched it too late. The thing is that there are products that you likely don't want to be embarrassed when you launch, like airplanes or banking systems, payment systems, right? But most of us are working on something that we're okay to launch. It's not life and death question if we are launching something. So us launching something means that we are going to get feedback and work with it. Have you seen this product, and do you know what this is? Maybe someone had it in the room? No. No wonder, because it flopped. It was done by Microsoft. This is Microsoft Band. It was one of the first fitness watches, and it was amazing. It had so many features in it, but it was expensive. And when they released it, it had so much going on that users would get confused and it wasn't really usable. After investing lots and lots of money, Microsoft just discontinued it. So it was a flop. So sometimes more features and launching quite late, as amazing as it looks, is not what the market needs at all. So what could we do here? There is a book, Joy of Agility by Joshua Kirievsky, where he suggests start minimal and evolve. And I understand that it's embarrassing and sometimes we want to just be proud of whatever we're delivering. But what is the least thing that we could actually release? There are some concepts here that could help us, like evolutionary design. I was really excited when I learned about it as a QA. I was like, wow, this is great. Evolutionary design is the practice of growing a system in a natural way by adding the minimum amount of code to satisfy the business needs in an iterative and incremental approach. So we're basically moving step by step and improving our systems. One concept from there is desire paths. And you've likely seen examples in real life as well, where there is a pavement somewhere, there is a pedestrian zone, but people still walk through the field. And there were examples of architects on purpose not adding pathways. So here you can see also there's no pathway here. So the architect did not add the pathways on purpose. And everyone was like, why didn't you add any pathways? And they said, yeah, I'm waiting for the people to show me where I should add them. And these are exactly the learning opportunities for us. Even though you may wonder, yeah, but there's no pathway, how can we even do this? A book that can help a lot is Building Evolutionary Architectures. I did not think that I would like as much talks about architecture, but I do, because a lot of it, especially when it comes to evolution, is about having fitness checks, which are tests. And I do like those. So it's quite an interesting concept to look at. Talking about over-engineering and trying to do something simpler, there's a concept I need to remind you of, which is Datensparsamkeit. I'm sorry for butchering it in German for those who speak German. But if you translate it, it's basically don't need it, don't store it. This is about data. Very often when we work in teams, we're like, oh my God, I'll take everything someone gives me because maybe someday I will need it. Be careful here. The more you have, the more you need to protect. An example I would give here is a team I worked in. We had to give information to an email sending service about an order that was made. One field there was IBAN, so your bank account. And first we were like, okay, we will consume this number. And then we were wondering, how should we protect it? Because it's very personal information. So after thinking for a while, we were like, hey, in this email, it's not even shown fully. It's obfuscated. And then only last 4 digits are shown. So we spoke to the team that was giving us information and said, hey, maybe we don't need the full IBAN. And they said, yeah, it's fine. We can give you just the last 4 digits. And in this way, we were storing only information that we need. And we also did not need to protect all this information because otherwise we would have it in 2 different sources and the also surface of attack would be bigger. Another topic, an area I want to remind you of are safety nets. And when we talk about failing fast, we very often say fail fast and just, learn from it. But I would say fail fast wisely. You shouldn't just randomly do something without any kind of safety measures. So this is a part that sometimes we don't discuss as much. And there are safety nets for this. A real life example and picture is from the Depression years and Great Depression years in the US when they were building the Golden Gate Bridge in San Francisco. What they did was they started without, I think, safety net, and then people really needed a job, but people wouldn't really move forward because it's scary. You could die falling off from there. When they added the safety net, they started really moving forward and they knew what's going on and that, if something happens, they will be caught. So what we have to do in these cases, when we have lots of risk, there, we should reduce the fear to fail, right? So we are failing faster because we are failing wisely. We know that something is there to catch us and tell us that, hey, this is maybe not the best way. So what is our equivalent in the tech world? It's automated tests. I will give just like 3 tiny ones. You've heard about them, but just to scratch the surface. If you can, do TDD, because then you will have tests already there. You could pair with developers and help them implement those. I know this could be a big stretch for everyone, and not every company does that. And it's okay, and maybe you're not there yet. Another thing is balancing your tests based on your context, and also remember 80-20 rule, right? So that most of the time we can actually cover with our 20% of effort, 80% of results. Meaning you have something that's critical for your product. Concentrate there first. Maybe you don't need right now to test all those other bits and pieces in your software. In interviews, I really like to ask, how much testing is enough? And then some people are like, oh, it's never enough. I'm like, yeah, okay, interesting. Why is it not enough? But you have to know when it's enough for now, right? You may find out more information, but thinking what is essential in your product, what are the critical flows that you want to cover? I think it's very important. And thinking that, hey, with this piece of effort, we can cover actually most of our product and functionalities. And then you can discuss about trade-offs. And balancing your tests, this doesn't mean that you just have this big, huge end-to-end suite. It means think about how you could test it in a lower level, in a faster way, in a more reliable way. And the last tip, even if those 2 don't make sense, is fix a bug, write a test. As straightforward as it is, it's more often not that clear for many people. I told recently in a company I work in that, hey, fix a bug, write a test. And the person was like, huh? No, my senior developer never told me. When I actually create pull requests, they never told me to add a test. And this junior developer came over to me and he was like, you should tell my senior to tell me to add a test when I fix a bug. I was like, okay, interesting. I was like, but now you know. Now you know you can do that. A little thing that we can do here is when we verify the fix, check the code. Is there a bug? If is, oh, there's hopefully no bug, but is there a test? If not, start a conversation. Why is there no test? Maybe they couldn't add it. You will learn so much of useful information in all of this. Last but not least, area that I want to remind you of is understand the problem before you solutionize. As humans, we love solutions. Someone comes to you and says, oh, I have this. And you're like, okay, great. You can do this. We will solve it immediately. But first of all, we most of the times don't even understand what the person is dealing with. We don't understand their problem because we're not spending enough of time to understand their context and where they're coming from. Nadine Oldorf, when I spoke to her, once said that you have to get the problem to the bare bones. What she was talking about was product or business scenarios that we're trying to uncover. It's about requirements. When we're trying to develop something, let's really get to the skeleton of requirements before we're saying, okay, we will add this feature and this button and this will work like that. There's a nice graphic here about reasons organizations go agile that I would like to share with you. So this is depicting that in a joke form, but in every joke there's a little bit of truth, that most of organizations when they go agile, they're going for certain reasons which are related with competitors. An actual agile coach once told me that they went to organization and they said, oh, I'll, help them out. And then they talks to a manager and manager says, yeah, we went agile because we want to be more effective, like a book answer, right? What we say usually. And then she kept on digging and digging, and then she eventually went to another one, and they said, oh yeah, we did this because the CEO told us to do that. And then eventually she went to the CEO and said, why did you do that? And then first there was a book answer, but then she kept on digging. And then he said, you know what? I went to a golf course, and on the golf course there was another CEO, and we were playing golf. And then they said, you know what? We're doing this cool thing, agile. And then I was like, okay, we have to do it also. So these real reasons on why people do things sometimes are not the first answer that they give us. And for us, we don't start using certain tools or techniques because we think, oh, we solved this. But really use the tools only when you properly understand the problem, then speed up. Because tools help us speed up. But if we're just using it because we think that maybe it would help us, I'm not sure if it will help that much. A technique I would like to suggest to you in this case is 5 whys. Imagine this. It actually has happened to me. The CEO writes to you and says, hey, let's get this shiny new end-to-end automation tool. And likely in this day and age, it would be about AI and it will do everything for us. And then I'm like, okay, why should we get it? Well, we have had many issues in production due to bugs. Okay, good reason, but why was that? Well, we had no tests to provide safety and feedback, so everything kept on breaking, so we kept on rushing. This already is giving me a little bit more information, and I am starting to get curious. And I say, QA is a question asker. So Lina would not stop here. Most of the people would be like, okay, yes, we don't have tests, let's get this tool. So I'm like, okay, but why? We wanted to deliver features, but also had many reappearing bugs to fix. Okay, interesting. Why are they reappearing? Right? Remember the rule: fix a bug, add a test. They say, well, we had no tests to tell about bugs. We don't have test automation, even unit tests. We felt like there's no time for that. This is finally someone is getting annoyed and they're giving you the information that you're going for. The can of worms is opening. And then I'm like, okay, hey, you don't even have unit tests. So what's going on here? Why is that? We felt pressure from management. So all this in this question asker role that we have is just uncovering us that usually there's a bigger root cause. It's not a tool that's solving a certain situation for you. There's something more going on. So here, what I would do, I would say, no, we do not need to get this tool. We should invest more time in unit tests. And we should also talk likely about psychological safety in the teams, because it could be a little bit shaky because people feel they need to deliver, deliver, deliver. Just to make it clear, I don't think the tools are bad. They are not bad. They help us. Just let's use them wisely to solve our problems and let's not overdo it. And this is what we can learn as well from minimalism. Thinking about what's essential for us. And only when we understand properly what we need, and even understanding what is essential to you, it's effort. It takes time to realize what is value. And when I say also high quality product, I mean valuable product in your context, value to you. What is that? A lot of companies don't even know, they keep on going. There's a little piece of wisdom I would like to share here that I've read in one of the books. Buddha arrived at a river and the people waiting there asked him to cross it by walking over the water. Buddha pointed to a boat and said, "There's a simpler way." Sometimes, even though we can do everything, we should just choose the simpler way and choose a tool that can help us, right? And it's great, but understand the ways that you can take. There's an XKCD old comic that you may have seen before, which helps us to understand if we should automate something or not. So on one axis, it's how much time you are going to shave off. On another is how often you do the task. So if you're doing the task daily and it would shave off, let's say 30 seconds, then you could implement maybe 12 hours and it will pay off in a few years. And always ask yourself, is it worth it for me to try to automate this thing that maybe I do just once a year and I may not even need to repeat it? If there's one thought that you take from all this talk, I really hope is this one: that you make essential decisions with clarity, purpose, and intentionality. Less is more. Thank you.